Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I want to join as a former prosecutor, as U.S. Attorney and State Attorney General, in expressing my agreement that we owe a great debt of gratitude to the men and women in state and local police, in the FBI, and law enforcement generally, as we do to our United States military that are helping to keep us safe and free. And my fear is that that immense power may be misused by political leaders who apply them in ways that, in fact, interfere with our freedoms, our constitutionally guaranteed rights. And that's one of the reasons why I will join next week with my colleague, Senator Kaine, in offering amendments to the National Defense Authorization Act that would restrict the President's power to misuse that military and police force, in fact, to federalize and militarize law enforcement. And that's why also I will introduce measures that would restrict the overbroad and virtually undefined powers of the President under the Insurrection Act, so that he will be held accountable. And while we're talking about reform, and the chairman has said we should be looking forward, let's talk about FISA reform. And if we're looking for ways to improve that law and prevent any sorts of errors in the future, why not adopt those reforms? I've advocated them. I'm looking for Republican partners in that effort, as I did under President Obama when I first suggested, for example, that there be an adversarial process in the FISA process to make sure that any errors were eliminated. The chairman has said that the Mueller investigation went, quote, off the rails. If that investigation was off the rails, that's a pretty remarkable train to deliver the results that it did. And those results included 199 criminal charges, 37 indictments, 9 convictions, 5 prison sentences. Let me ask you, Mr. Rosenstein, and I should just remind you at the very outset, I was the only member of the committee who voted against you. I'm
well aware of that, Senator.
I was one of the 6 on the floor of the Senate who voted against you, and my reason was solely that you refused to commit that you would appoint a special counsel. And then you did, and I lauded you for it, and I defended you for preserving the independence of that investigation. Let me ask you, is it your testimony today that had you known then what you know now, that you would not have appointed Robert Mueller to serve as special counsel?
I believed at the time, Senator, and I still believe it was the right decision under the circumstances. I recognize people can criticize me for it. That's the consequence of being in these jobs. You make decisions and then you get criticized for them. But I believe it was the right decision at the time.
And is it your testimony today that if you had known then what you know now, that you would have intervened in or stopped that investigation?
Based on what I know, Senator, no. But I don't know everything, and I'm open to the possibility there's more information that may come out. And if more information emerges,
well, let me give you, Mr. Rosenstein, a quote that I think is dispositive today, and dispositive probably for the future. And it comes from the Inspector General, whose report you have in front of you.
Correct.
Quote, "We don't take issue with any part of the special counsel's report." Mm-hmm. Let me repeat it. We don't take issue with any part of the special counsel's report. That was his testimony before this committee in December when he presented his report. So after all of the umbrage and outrage and heated political rhetoric, the report and its conclusions and findings remain unchallenged by the Inspector General. Would you agree?
I do, and I think it was important, Senator, to establish that an independent investigation found that the Russians sought to interfere in the election and that no Americans conspired with them. I think those are very important findings, and I'm grateful to the folks who helped us reach that conclusion.
And far from saying that the Mueller investigation is of no consequence, in fact, it is of immense and historic consequence because it shows, as you said, and I'm going to quote you, there was overwhelming evidence that Russian operatives hacked American computers and defrauded American citizens, and that is only the tip of the iceberg of a comprehensive Russian strategy to influence elections, promote social discord, and undermine America. That was your characterization of the report. That is immensely important. What we're saying is of no consequence is, in fact, all of this stuff about Carter Page, about the Steele dossier, because at the end of the day, the reason why that report is of consequence is it shows that the Russians interfered and the Trump campaign welcomed it.
Senator, I think it's important to recognize, and I believe I was consistent throughout my tenure as Deputy Attorney General in trying to make this point, that the Russians are on the Russian side. They don't affiliate with the Republican or the Democrat Party. They're on the Russian side, and they are an adversary for interfering in our election. That offends and should offend everybody, regardless of your politics.
And the reason why we're here today really is to deflect attention from an economic crisis, a healthcare emergency, demonstrations in our streets and communities that legitimately ask for justice. And if we want to fix the problem, what we should do is FISA reform, not rehash a set of allegations that is, in fact, of no consequence. Because the reason why you began the investigation and why the department began the investigation was, first, the Russian government hacked the Democratic National Committee. Second, WikiLeaks published 20,000 emails stolen from the DNC. And third, a Trump campaign official bragged to a foreign government that Russia told the Trump campaign it could help them through the anonymous release of damaging information on Hillary Clinton. That's what set off the investigation.
Well, Senator, the only issue I might take with that is that I didn't begin the investigation. I did end the investigation, but the investigation had begun 9 months before I arrived.
But those are the reasons that the investigation began, correct?
I wasn't there, so I can't attest to that.